The terminal at JFK International Airport's Gate 47B pulsed with the frenetic energy of a city that never sleeps. Business travelers weaved through the crowd, briefcases swinging, their eyes darting to flight boards. Parents knelt beside restless children, offering snacks and whispered promises of adventure. Flight attendants, crisp in their uniforms, checked manifests and exchanged quick nods. Amid this orchestrated chaos stood Ava Montgomery, a beacon of calm in a tailored navy pantsuit that hugged her frame like a second skin. Her natural coils were pinned with precision, and behind gold-rimmed glasses, her gaze was glued to her phone, fingers dancing across the screen. As the billionaire CEO of Nexera Systems, she was putting the final touches on a $5 billion merger with Stratozair, the very airline she was about to board. Her presence was subtle but commanding, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Hey, before we dive deeper into this electrifying story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for MidnightTales, tap the notification bell, and share this with your friends. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Let's see how far this tale of power and justice spreads. Ava moved toward the first-class lane with the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. She flashed her boarding pass to the agent, a woman with a tight bun and a tired expression. The scanner beeped, and the agent's brow furrowed. "Ma'am, this boarding pass doesn't look valid," she said, her voice flat, almost mechanical. Ava tilted her head, one perfectly arched brow lifting. "Excuse me," she said, her tone calm but edged with steel. Before she could elaborate, two security officers appeared at her sides, their uniforms starched and their faces unyielding. "You need to come with us," one said, his voice curt, offering no room for questions. Confusion flickered across Ava's face, but she held her ground. "Can someone explain what this is about?" she asked, her voice steady, refusing to betray the rising tension. The agent glanced up, her expression hardening. "She's causing a disturbance," she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to turn. "Escorting her is standard procedure." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones emerged, their cameras glinting like vultures circling. "I'm not causing anything," Ava said, her voice low but firm, her poise unshaken. "I've done nothing wrong." But the officers didn't waver. Each grabbed an arm, their grips tight, and began pulling her toward the jet bridge. "This is harassment," Ava protested, her heels scraping against the carpet, her laptop bag bouncing against her hip. The scene was surreal, a slow-motion spectacle in the midst of the terminal's bustle. Passengers gasped, some stepping back, others leaning in, their phones capturing every second. "Isn't that Ava Montgomery?" someone murmured, recognition dawning. By the time they reached the terminal's security area, Ava's blazer had slipped off one shoulder, and her phone clattered to the floor, the screen flashing with unread messages. She straightened, her breath heavy but controlled, and fixed the officers with a look that could cut glass. "You just made the biggest mistake of your careers," she said, her voice a quiet thunder. Inside a sterile conference room, Ava sat across from Darren Briggs, the airport manager, whose red face and fidgeting hands betrayed his discomfort. He avoided her gaze, mumbling something about a mix-up. "I want an explanation," Ava said, her tone icy as she smoothed her sleeve. Darren let out a nervous chuckle, the kind that tried to dismiss the gravity of the moment. "It was just confusion. Misidentification happens all the time." Ava's eyes narrowed. "No," she said, her voice like a blade. "It doesn't, and it shouldn't. Not like this." Darren blinked, sweat beading on his forehead. "We'll compensate you," he stammered. "A first-class voucher, maybe a year of free flights." Ava shook her head, a small, almost pitying smile tugging at her lips. "You clearly don't know who I am." She reached for the landline on the table, her movements deliberate. "Wait, ma'am, please," Darren pleaded, his voice cracking, but Ava was already dialing. "Hello, this is Ava," she said into the receiver, her voice calm but resolute. "Go ahead and pull the contract with Stratozair. Yes, effective immediately. Terminate negotiations and reallocate those funds to the new partnership with Continental. Orbit, thank you." She hung up, her gaze locking onto Darren's, his face drained of color. "Wait, what? What contract?" he sputtered. Ava's expression was unreadable, her silence more deafening than words. "The one your airline spent 16 months negotiating," she said finally. "You just lost a $5 billion investment." The room seemed to collapse under the weight of her words. One security officer stared at the floor, his jaw tight. The other turned toward the window, as if the view could erase what had just happened. Darren's mouth opened and closed, grasping for words that wouldn't come. "Ma'am, please, let's talk," he managed. "It was a mistake, one person's call, not the company's." Ava's gaze didn't waver. "No," she said. "It was the culture your company built, one where people like me are doubted, disrespected, and dragged away without cause." Outside the room, the terminal buzzed with murmurs. Employees had seen the footage, now spreading like wildfire. Across phones and whispered conversations, a young woman in a Stratozair uniform, her hands trembling, leaned toward a colleague. "They just messed with the woman who was about to own half the airline," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Suddenly, The airport director appeared, a tall man with silver hair and a grim expression that spoke of damage control. "Ms. Montgomery, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice urgent. "Please, come with me. I'd like to speak privately." Ava stood, her posture regal despite the ordeal. "I'm done speaking," she said, her voice cool. "But I'll watch what you do next." 10 minutes later, the agent who had flagged her was escorted out, tears streaming down her face. Darren, still reeling, was handed a letter of termination on the spot. As Ava walked past the terminal's massive windows, she paused. Outside, a billboard still boasted, "Coming soon, Nexira plus Stratos Air, building the future of aviation." A technician was already climbing a ladder to dismantle it, the letters peeling away like a fading promise. In the car driving away, from JFK, Ava's phone buzzed. A new message flashed across the screen. "Continental orbit confirms. Deal locked at $6.3 billion. CEO sends regards and full apology for today's incident." A faint smile curved her lips as she gazed out the window, the New York skyline blurring past like a painting in motion. The world moved on, but the lesson lingered. Power doesn't always shout its presence. It doesn't need to. Respect, however, should never hinge on appearance, race, or gender. Ava Montgomery didn't raise her voice or throw a punch. She let her actions speak, and the consequences roared. In a society striving for equity, this story is a blazing reminder that everyone deserves dignity. A single assumption, a moment of negligence, can cost millions, sometimes billions. To every organization, public or private, let this be a wake-up call. Train your staff to see people, not profiles. The person you dismiss today might be the one who shapes your tomorrow. And to you, watching this on Midnight Tales, never let anyone define your worth. Ava didn't fight or falter. She stood tall, let the truth speak, and justice followed. Want more stories that ignite your soul and challenge the status quo? Subscribe to Midnight Tales, hit that notification bell, and share this video with your friends. Tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Let's see how far these lessons travel. Stay bold, stay true, and keep tuning in for more powerful tales on Midnight Tales. The airport terminal faded into the distance as Ava's car sped toward the city, but the echoes of her stand reverberated far beyond Gate 47B. Every passenger who witnessed it, every employee who whispered her name, carried the story forward. It wasn't just about a billionaire or a botched boarding pass. It was about the cost of prejudice, the weight of respect, and the power of standing firm. Ava Montgomery didn't just walk away from Stratos Air. She walked toward a future where no one would be dragged away without cause. The skyline gleamed against the dusk, a testament to ambition and resilience. And Ava's faint smile held the promise of more battles won, more truths uncovered. This is the kind of story we love to tell on MidnightTales, stories that don't just entertain but challenge, inspire, and remind us all to demand better. So, keep watching, keep sharing, and let's make sure these lessons reach every corner of the globe. Where are you tuning in from? Drop it in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going on